Glad you could join us. Now, Joy News investigations have uncovered how the state-owned Metro Mass Transit Limited lost over 1 million Ghana cedis as a result of undervaluation of some 200 buses sold by the company. The buses were declared unserviceable, and as a policy of the company, they were supposed to be sold off as scrap. Joy News, however, found out the valuation process was compromised, and this has cost the company more than 1 million cedis in revenue. Manasseh Azuri has spent months tracking the valuation and sale of the vehicles and now reports.
In the office of the managing director of Metro Mass, an auctioneer who claims to have facilitated the sale of 18 unserviceable buses complains he has been shortchanged. He claims the buses were sold to people recommended by the board chairman, Ahmed Arthur, who also promised him 100 cedis on each of the buses. This is in addition to his fee for the auctioning. Mr. Arthur has denied any involvement in the sale of the buses, but that's not the only problem with the deal. In December 2016 and February 2017, the valuation department of the State Transport Company, STC, valued the 202 vehicles for Metro Mass. The total value was 1,397,000 cedis. In October 2017, the chairman of the committee mandated to oversee the disposal of the buses wrote to the managing director of Metro Mass, raising questions of inaccuracies in the valuation report. In that memo, he pointed out,
for instance, the valuation report would indicate that there is no engine in a particular bus. However, physical examination of the said bus reveals otherwise.
What this means is that with the engines and other parts, the value of the buses ought to have been higher than the 1,397,000 cedis. The committee made 3 suggestions to the managing director, Bennett Abwaji.
1. That the technical department is tasked to remove all parts which are not meant for scrapping from the boarded buses to tally with what the valuation report contains.
Expect the full report on this particular revelation on the Pulse at 3 p.m. Now, let's move to a silent topic that's hardly discussed among the players, and yet it's so obvious, it's almost tangible: competition. Media practitioners are constantly competing for your eyes and ears and anything that means attention. Well, on a Press Freedom Day, we open up the discussion in the search for what many have called a healthy competition among media organizations. Listen to the thoughts of journalists on striking a balance between competition and human interest.
There have been instances where we have journalists being restricted in the work that they do or in their work, and that often comes with brutalities and attacks and all that. It isn't healthy, and it doesn't give journalists the room or the room to operate, and that isn't good enough. That needs to be changed.
Before he realized, one guy had just hit him in the face.
World Press Freedom Day, especially if we look at some of the atrocities that have happened to media people, journalists, I don't think it's something we should be proud of. The latest one is the one that has to do with the Joy FM reporter, Latif. I'm surprised that till now the police has agreed that yes, the force they used was excessive, but it's about time we put a lot of pressure. He needs, or he deserves, compensation. When we go out there to do our work, we are not there in your faces because we want to be in your faces. It is the nature of our job. It is how we work. We're supposed to nose around. We're supposed to find out why things are the way they are. So bear with us. We are tolerant, be accommodating. We're doing it for you. And so let us stop attacks on journalists. It is wrong, and it is wrong.
The Ghana Journalists Association, in collaboration with the Ghana Police Service, should do more to make sure reporters are well protected.
People need to understand that journalists are people who are simply telling the stories that matter to them, ensuring that their lives become better.
So that society can benefit from whatever I'm doing to help my country to develop successfully.
It's a growing trend which is quite alien to us here in Ghana.
Although Ghana is known as a haven of press freedom, that has come under threat in the past couple of years because police or political vigilantes simply do not think the media should do what they do. The fact that somebody's been attacked on a sister radio station should concern us, because that means that all of us are collectively not safe.
We need to take care of the journalists.
With a lot of international support from international partners, you find that we, first of all, know how to do our work better, and also we are able to do what we are required to do.
Some people are abusing the authority that we've given them. So we need to drive the principles that have to drive national development, rule of law. We have to check on the excesses, and you have to check on getting the right goods delivered to the people. I think is perfect.
Chapter 12 of the Constitution. Chapter 12 of the Constitution largely deals with media freedom and all of that. So I expect there to be a lot more freedom.
Don't have the freedom to even move and to ask the questions, then what's the point of being a journalist?
The brutalities that we have seen against media persons ought to end. People in responsible offices must ensure that such things like what has just recently happened to Latif and also a TV3 reporter do not continue.
And on this note, we call for justice for our colleague Latif Idris, who was assaulted by policemen in the course of duty whilst asking a question at the CID headquarters during the arrest of Deputy NDC General Secretary Koku Anyidoho. Police are looking into this matter, and we are asking for an expediting of the investigations. Speaking of the police, the Ghana Police Service has revealed the activities of car snatching syndicates in the capital is getting sophisticated, as some of them have resorted to spiking the drinks of their victims. The police is optimistic its motorbike patrol launched recently will help clamp down on their activities. But in the latest series on the Ghana Police Watch program on the Joy News channel, Israel Laye tells us more on the modus operandi of these syndicates.
The Ghana Police also announced that it is breaking up a major car snatching syndicate operating across the country. Arrests have been made, and 31 vehicles, mostly Toyota four-wheel drives, have been recovered from 72 cars reported missing and likely to have been stolen by this gang, some of whom have appeared in court, whilst investigations continue to effect more arrests.
These are some of the cars we've been able to retrieve from these robbers, and most of the cars are Toyota vehicles, 4x4, and this is what they prefer to steal because to them it is already in the system.
Where are these vehicles mostly stolen from?
When it comes to carjacking, everybody is vulnerable. But the places that these carjacking syndicate robbers do normally operate are areas like Kokrobite, you have Weja, you go to East Legon, Dansuman area, Medina.
The important question is, how do they operate?
try to trail you right from the traffic to your house. They lay ambush. When you come home, they attack you with their weapon, take the car away from you, and move the car from the vicinity all the way to Tamale. That is where they have their shops.
The drivers take the vehicles to Tamale, most times using remote and unauthorized routes, meandering across the country to avoid detection and arrest.
They have their spraying shop and tax the sprayers to respray the car.
The gang has dedicated drivers who, like the mechanics, welders and sprayers, are all essential members of the syndicate.
If the car is an already registered car, they also have their accomplices. They work things out, the modalities out, and then change the number plate of the car, the roadworthy of the car. And if the car is also already unregistered, then they go ahead, register the car, and then resold these cars into the market.
The modus operandi is different and cunning. The trend is increasing and worrying. These criminals use deception and doping of their victims to ensure they seize the cars. They'll go to bar stations or taxi ranks and pretend to be interested in hiring a vehicle. If you agree to rent out your vehicle, they would request that you drive to Accra Mall, where they intend to pick up somebody for the trip. Mr. Ike Abaka, Chief Superintendent, District Commander, Airport, picks up the story about these criminals.
These criminals go to the taxi ranks and then trotro stations, pretending they want to hire the services of a driver or a taxi cab. Then when they get him, they send him to Accra Mall. Pretending that some of the people they are going to pick are there. So he goes in, comes back with a juice and said, oh, the people are coming, so you just take this juice whilst we prepare. As soon as
and sprinter buses. The doping of the victim through spiking of drinks is dangerous and can have a long-term effect on the health of the victim.
It's serious. Sometimes the driver will be out for 2 or 3 days. And even when they come to report the cases here, you can see they are still intoxicated. So I don't know the kind of substance they put in it.
We went to talk to DCO Piefrie, Chief Pharmacist at the police hospital.
Because the person administering or adding the drug to it is not a professional, his intention is to snatch the vehicle from the person or rob the person or assault the person. He just asks a certain quantity he thinks, he feels it's okay, but that could be dangerous to the person. And also the person could be allergic to the drug. If we're even prescribed drugs, we have people who are allergic to even paracetamol and even anti-malarials with it. So if the person is allergic to it, it may lead to his death. They are often colorless, odorless, and tasteless. So it's difficult for you to detect it when it is added. They even use syringes and just inject a little bit of it into it. So it is important that you are careful receiving drinks from people you don't know.
And the Police Watch program airs on the Joy News channel every Monday and Sunday at 6 p.m. You're still watching Joy News today with me, Daniel Daze. Just gone by, Manasseh Azuri-Awuni took us to the Metro Mass Transit Company, where it has been found that some 200 buses were undervalued, costing the nation some 1 million Ghana cedis. Still to come, unemployment ridicules a graduate certificate and not 700 Ghana cedis. That's the response of the Chief Executive Officer of the National Youth Authority, Emmanuel Asigri, to critics of the Nation Builders Corps, NABCO. And child deaths in parts of Ghana resulting from infections are still high, as about half of all deliveries are done at home, usually by unskilled traditional birth attendants. All that and more coming up. Stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. Now, the National Youth Authority has defended government's latest program aimed at reducing graduate unemployment in the country. In a response to critics, mainly from the opposition NDC, who are discrediting the Nation Builders Call launched yesterday in Kumasi, Chief Executive Officer of the National Youth Authority, Emmanuel Assigri, argued unemployment ridicules the certificate of graduates, not 700 Ghana cedis. A statement signed by Mr. Assigri indicated the minority should be measured in its criticism, since unemployment is not a political jabbing opportunity, but a real problem facing Ghana's youth. Well, Mr. Assigri is with me in the studio for some more thoughts on this statement issued a while ago. Good afternoon, Mr. Assigri. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Oh, in the first place, what would you say is that striking difference between NAPCO, the Nation Builders Corps, and the NYEP, now YEA, the National Youth Employment Program?
Well, if you take the two programs, the National Youth Employment Program has a mandate to run programs for 2 years, and it's supposed to be doing rolling out programs for various models that are not targeted at areas like the Nation Builders Corps has been designed to deal with, in terms of specific areas that we have looked at, and we think that young people who have the requisite qualifications should be put into augment for the areas where hitherto we didn't have people with such professional backgrounds to take up these responsibilities. And then the Youth Employment Program too has a 2-year mandate. If you take the Nation Builders Corps, it has a 3-year lifespan, and it is to prepare young people through to a point where I believe that most of them will be absorbed into the formal sector properly by the time the program comes to its conclusion in terms of which model or which period you will be put on the program.
How important was it to run this program separately from the NYEP? Why, for instance, could we not have expanded the mandate of the NYEP?
Certainly very important, because if you look at the Nation Builders Corps programs, it is meant to take up young graduates, who have either finished the university or polytechnics. And so we are dealing with some specific challenge to do with young people in this regard. With regards to YEA, we have not limited it to dealing with just graduates. We have people who are put on models from the informal sector, and even in some areas like the community police unit, to speak to, if you look at it, those with the qualification to go on that program are not people from the graduates or diploma backgrounds. These are people who would have a minimum of a JHS qualification to enroll on. So if you take the various models, we have not, taken what is run at the YEA for granted. We think that it plays a key role, and you would have heard the president, when he launched the program yesterday, indicate that YEA has 80,000 young people they're going to target to also bring on board for these other sectors, which would also deal with the informal sector. So,
how sustainable is the NAPCO as a program?
Well, I must indicate that we are poised to put in the resources of this country into proper use, and I can assure you that we have what it takes to make it sustainable. It is not something that we have just tried to put in as a firefighting measure, and I think that what we are seeing in terms of the numbers that are already, putting themselves up, we are encouraged with it, and we want to encourage more of young graduates who hitherto have not had any hope in getting some jobs to put themselves through this process, and we will get them on board.
Right. But speaking of the resources being dedicated to this, we know the YEA, for instance, has the communication service tax a percentage of DACF gets fund. Does the NABCO have any of these funding lines dedicated to it?
Not that I can speak to, but I want to believe that you would have heard when we had the issue to do with the Free Senior High School come up. Mr. President indicated that he is poised to using the resources of this country to developing the young generation. And when he made that statement, I thought, you know, it resonates. I mean, it should resonate with us as a people, because if you have more than half of the population of this country constituting that bracket, you know, about 16.7 million people out of our number falling within the bracket that we define as youth, and we have a president who thinks that the resources of this country should be channeled into that direction. I think that we must commend, you know, the leadership in looking at things in this regard. He talked about resources coming from the various natural resources we have, like
such as oil and what have you.
You know,
yes, that's well and good. Thank you. But moving on, this year we are taking 100,000 people. When is the next batch being taken in? How many people are being taken in at that point?
I think that we would continue to look at the figures ranging within the 100,000s. The reason is that if you take just the number that when we put on national service alone for last year, who will be going through or coming out of it in the next 2 months, and we're hoping that they would take advantage of this, because as the provision stipulates, you should have gone through the national service process. The numbers range between 75,000 to about 85,000 from what we got from national service. And I believe that if we take we want to do a projection for others who are not coming from this particular area, we should be making the numbers move up a bit, and that's why it is in the 100,000s range. So I believe...
So you're going to be admitting new people every single year?
I guess, I mean, yeah, certainly.
Yeah.
Yeah, certainly. So
and around the figures of 100,000?
Yes, absolutely.
And they will all stay on the program for 3 years?
Yes, absolutely.
Do you have enough spaces in the various modules to take up all of these people?
We have more than enough space. Look, if you take areas like my agency, we are supposed to be operating in the over 250 districts now. But as we speak, to go around this country and then say you want to find National Youth Authority offices at the various districts, we are not in more than 52 districts.
But that's because of a lack of resources, you can tell me.
I mean, lack of human resources, not resources in probably your own way, but lack of human resources.
But Ghana failed to reach its revenue target last year. We missed our revenue target in 2017.
Well,
yes. The current wage bill is around 50%, 650,000 public sector workers.
That is not to stop us from looking at interventions that would need to move this country forward. Because, like, I'm using my agency as an example, which, I mean, should be the first area I should be looking at. It is an area where I mean, if National Youth Authority, which has been given the mandate to look at youth development of our country, which I have just indicated is the key component of this population, we cannot say we are operating in just 52 districts and we are happy about it. So it's just one of the examples I'm citing.
So it's an example.
If you go to my home district, Garu, there's a health center at the place. If you look at the models, like we have Heal Ghana, they're talking about putting people to dealing with specific areas.
Okay.
We don't have a laboratory at the health center. Okay. So people go, and then the nurses, and as I speak, we don't even have a doctor at that hospital. We have nurses who are the ones manning these areas. They just look at the conditions and then they're able to say, okay, this is malaria.
Right.
And you know, you have people who are suffering from typhoid who have similar, symptoms like malaria, and they are treated with just malaria and they are suffering from the other areas. Okay, now that we have these areas that we are going to target and put people in there, these are places where we have thought through and we think that the Ghanaian people will benefit from this beyond what we are looking at in terms of getting the young people to also be the key beneficiaries.
Right, thank you very much, Emmanuel Asegui. He's the Chief Executive Officer of the National Youth Authority. Let's stay with this issue of the Nation Builders Call, because when President Akufo-Addo launched the program yesterday, it was announced that it's expected to provide 100,000 jobs for graduates. Government has touted the policy, as you have heard, the panacea to graduate unemployment. But Maxwell Agbagba visited the University of Ghana campus to interact with some level 400 students or final year students who will qualify to join the program after their national service.
Personally, I don't think I would want to, but I think from my perspective, I think the Nation Builders Corps should be, it is a good initiative, all right, but in my opinion, I also think that it's very temporary. Looking at the details of it, the 3-year term that should have to stay in and then go out, it looks temporary, and looking at the vast number of graduates, unemployed graduates out there, I don't think it would meet that, it will satisfy that, should I say, the whole unemployment situation Ghanaians are facing.
So you think 100,000 would not be able to... It's too small.
It's too small, yes. Wow. Because looking at the number of people who graduate from the University of Ghana alone, we are looking at distance students, we are looking at the regular students, those from city campus. Every year, a large number of students graduate from the University of Ghana. Not just the University of Ghana, we are looking at Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, we are looking at UPSA, we are looking at the private universities as well, we are looking at UCC, and the polytechnics as well. And all these people end up doing national service. Right after national service, if you propose this, it is a good initiative, no doubt, but the number is just too small, in my opinion.
Interesting. Well, I mean, if you speak to a lot of level 400 students, one thing that they fear is graduate unemployment, knowing that right after school they would have to do their national service. And some will tell you that, look, I don't know what I'm going to do after national service. The Nation Builders Corps is coming. You get paid $700.
Well, I think it's a good initiative. Well, the Nation Builders Corps, I know there are some graduates out there who are permanently employed and not taking up to 700 cedis as monthly salary. Some take less, even though they are permanently employed. And looking at the policy, after every 3 years, you would have to go out of it. Maybe the government would bring in more unemployed graduates. Looking at the different works they are going to do, the health, the agric, and everything, there are companies out there who want people who have some sort of training.
Another part of the debates, Daniel, has been the salary for these, people. One of the NDC MPs actually said it's an extension of national service. 700 Ghana cedis we are told you're going to be paid. That's led to a whole conversation on social media with, people sharing their stories about the salaries that they received for their first job. Some of them, a friend of mine in the office, Joseph Akabile, said his first job paid him 90 cedis. 700 Ghana cedis. Is it enough for a graduate?
I think ideally it's not enough for graduates, but I think that if you are in such a position where you need a breath of fresh air after national service, where you have nothing to do, I think 700 cedis comes in very handy, I think. Okay. I think it's a good initiative, but that's where the impact that the president and the policymakers are looking at it making in the country. I do hope it actually makes the impact of improving healthcare and improving education, etc.
Interesting conversations being spawned as a result of the NAFCO program. We'll be following that, keeping an eye on those developments. But child deaths in parts of Ghana resulting from infections are still high, as about half of all deliveries are done at home, usually by unskilled traditional birth attendants, TBAs. Now, some TBAs still conduct deliveries in many hard-to-reach areas despite a Ghana Health Services ban. In the following story, my colleague Justice Spady reports from the northern region town of Salaga, one of the districts with Ghana's highest child mortality cases, on how some TBAs do deliveries with their bare hands and unsterilized rags, putting the lives of hundreds of babies on the line.
Baby Fusaini is one of the victims of Ghana's failing maternal health system. Her mother, then 30 years, went into labor, spent hours traveling by boat, trying to reach the next community with a health center to deliver. She made it to the Yeji hospital, delivered, and died 2 days later from excessive bleeding. Now he is being cared for by the auntie, Rabiatu.
If his mother were alive, this baby
wouldn't suffer the way he is now. He cries every night for the mother. I don't sleep. I have to carry her all night so he doesn't cry. I really want to help keep him alive so that he too can be somebody tomorrow.
These stories are common in places like East Gonja, where communities are separated from health centers by the Volta Lake. Up to 70 towns here alone are either on the lake or without a motorable road to a health center. Elsewhere in the small town of Kabache, one of the babies lucky to have survived delivery. Baby Mufida was delivered by 60-year-old Binta Amadu, a traditional birth attendant, 3 weeks ago. Mufida's mother, too, could not reach a clinic in time and had to be delivered at home by a traditional birth attendant. TBAs are usually older women who have mastered the science of delivering babies. Some deliver women safely, usually with their bare hand. Some get complications, touching blood, and hardly used sterilized materials, exposing babies to infections like neonatal sepsis, which account for most child deaths in places like East Gonja.
Around 5 out of every 10 deliveries in this district are done at home and usually by unskilled birth attendants. That makes people like Binta the first port of call for women in labor, as many of the health centers in this district are far from the communities. People like Binta then become the crucial link between women in labor and the health professionals who can deliver them safely.
I don't even have gloves. I use bare hands to touch the blood when doing delivery. That scares me. These days, I could get an infection or infect the baby. There's no light too. So when I'm called at night, I walk in the dark to go and deliver a woman.
The Ghana Health Service has now banned TBAs from doing deliveries and instead encouraging them to bring women in labor to health centers. But that too seemed not to be working, as women prefer them instead of the long, sometimes dangerous road to the hospital.
The TBAs, the challenge we have is that we have trained them as link providers to refer, but we still have some few of them who still go ahead and conduct delivery. The environment and the conditions under which the deliveries are conducted are not good enough to ensure that the children or the babies and the mothers are safe from infection. So most of the time, their deliveries, you get some getting neonatal infections and puerperal sepsis, which can lead to maternal death or infant death.
As more than half of all deliveries in parts of Ghana are still done at home by TBAs, the conditions in which they work would remain a concern for mothers and babies whose lives are constantly on the line. Justice Baidu, Joy News, Salaga.
It's now time for business with Emmanuel Abwajiafi. Stay with us.